We have had men come from different countries like Costa Rica, Ecuador, Colombia, also from Dominican Republic.
Welcome to the Crucible Project Podcast. The Crucible Project is a nonprofit organization committed to creating a world of men and women who live with integrity, grace, and courage, helping them to fulfill their God-given purpose. This podcast will discuss important and sometimes difficult topics while delivering practical life applications with men and women who are currently practicing this work. We are igniting Christ-like change in men and women through experiences of radical honesty and grace.
Welcome back to the Crucible Podcast. My name is Joy Dunning. I am your host for today, and I am here with Matthew Reed. Matthew, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Joy.
Good. Well, Matthew is one of our volunteers with Crucible. He and his wife, Lena, have been instrumental in helping us get Crucible in Mexico off the ground. And we're here to talk a little bit today about cross-cultural ties with Crucible and what it looks like taking the Crucible Project on the road to places outside of the continental United States. So, Matthew, to get us started, why don't you tell me, you said you were born in the U.S., correct? But you've grown up in some other places.
Yeah, so I was born in South Carolina. Before I turned one, my parents moved to Madrid, Spain. So I grew up in Spain. My parents were missionaries. Dad was a pastor, and that's where I grew up. I was there until I turned 19. Took a year extra after high school, so I spent a year just helping out in the ministry there. And then from there, I went to the U.S. And studied at a college near Chicago for 4 years. I studied psychology, and so that was really my growing up years were spent in Spain. So I grew up bilingual, bicultural. And then right after college, I went to Mexico to work with children for 2 years, and that's where I met Lena. She was working with the same ministry. After those 2 years, we went to the States and started our family. We got married in '99, started our family, and spent 9 years in the Chicago area as well. And we've been in Mexico now the last 15 years.
Very cool. So what brought you from Chicago back to Mexico?
Yeah, so when we got married, we were already doing ministry, and our decision to go to the States in '99 after we got married was mainly, we thought it would be important for Lena to get her citizenship, just for long-term being able to move about the country a bit better. And then also I needed to pay off college debt, and so we decided to spend some years focusing on that. But really, our heart was to be on the mission field, serving somewhere. So we thought it'd take us 3 years. It took us 9. But she became a U.S. citizen in 2005. And then once that happened, we started looking to see where God might lead us, and found an organization based in Chicagoland. It used to be called International Teams. Now it's called One Collective. And so we've been with One Collective for the last 15 years. The reason we chose Tenancingo, where we are, One Collective had 2 places in the country. We decided on Mexico mainly because that's where Lena is from, and her family's here. And we just said, why not Mexico out of a bunch of Spanish-speaking countries? We thought Spanish made sense since both of us spoke Spanish already. And so we decided Tenancingo that there was a church plant here that was started by a man who had been mentored by my dad in Spain in the 80s. And so I knew of him. I'm like, I didn't know where he had ended up in life. And finally we realized, he's in Tenancingo, and like, let's go check it out. And so we came down here at the end of 2008.
Very cool. So you had that tie, that person in your life that was really important, and that's brought you to where you're at. And you've done a lot of work where you're at, huh? You've been there for 15 years.
Yeah. Yep.
And through that, God has used where you're at to help bring the Crucible Project and advance the Crucible Project in Mexico. Mm-hmm. So, man, God bless you and Lena for the work that you've done and following where He's taken you.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's jump in a little bit to your story. So you went on an initial weekend you said it was in Texas and it was a Spanish speaking weekend. Is that correct?
No. So my initial weekend was actually in Mexico. There's 2014 was the very first one they did, and I was not a part of that one, but I was a part of the second weekend they did. I was a participant there. So it was April of 2015.
Okay, very cool. So you had your initial weekend, and what was that like for you going into it, coming out of it?
Well, I was invited by a friend who had been to a weekend, and both he and the founder of the church that I mentioned earlier both had gone, and he said it's a great weekend for men. You're going to be challenged. It's going to be good. And I thought, well, sure, okay, why not? And I didn't really have a lot of clarity or desire or whatever. I just thought, okay, my friend told me it's good. I'll go. So just to give you some backstory on myself, when I went to college, my sophomore year, it was right before Christmas. We got this news that my dad died suddenly of a heart attack.
Mm.
I was 20 years old. He was very young. He was 45, and so that event was my single, just big, earth-shattering event in my life. When I look at my life and I hear the stories of so many men in my life, I just realize really the good childhood I had. My parents both imperfectly, but really very focused and very tenderly raised us well. Dad was a good dad, very involved as best as he could, and connected emotionally, and mom was very present, very encouraging too. So that at age 20, losing dad was very earth shattering, and I had felt like I had grieved that loss well, and I thought, I just kind of had adapted to that well. When I went to the weekend, I was 40, so 20 years later, and I was able to to just really focus on that experience and that loss, and just kind of I guess see it in a different light, and
Mm.
see, just notice how that had really changed the trajectory of my perception of myself and how I did life as an adult. I mean, I just started as an adult, and so I was blown away by just that awareness. So it was a very very powerful experience for me.
Wow. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm feeling really tender for you. Being 20, and that's kind of the age that you're trying to figure out how you step into what it actually means to be a man, and to not
Mm-hmm.
have your dad there. I can imagine that was hard, and I'm,
Yeah,
I'm glad that you got through that, and I'm glad that you've been able to find some additional healing outside of the initial
yeah,
healing, because that is a big thing.
yeah. It is, and I that weekend was just the beginning, I guess. Crucible offers a few more additional weekends, and I know that's announced through the website and through other things. But I've attended those, and one of the things that uh, after that initial weekend kind of dawned on me is this: I had not realized how much I had held back as an adult and trying to not shine, not be, not grow into everything I could give, all the maybe the gold and all the good I could give in my world, subconsciously, because I didn't want to exceed my dad in some ways.
Mm.
He was a hero to me and to many, and there was just something that to me, the word mediocre jumped out a lot. Just it's okay to be mediocre. It's all right, because if you don't, you might be dishonoring dad. And so
Mm.
to come to that awareness has been a good thing for me. I still find myself, even after years of this, defaulting to that, because that's what I've known for a couple decades. But I'm aware of it, and so now it's like, no, I can honor dad's loss and his place in my life in different ways, not by staying mediocre. I can shine, and I can just imagine him looking down and saying, "Yeah, that's it. That's my boy." And so
Yeah.
that just gives me encouragement to step into things that I know I can do well, and yeah, just be able to give the best I can.
Yeah. Honor his legacy by creating your own. It's really
Right.
cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally.
Well, so one of the ways that you have been shining and stepping into that gold is the work that you've been doing with the Crucible Project in Mexico. So I know you said it was initially brought there by another man. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then you and Lena have been able to join forces and be part of that team that's helping
Mm-hmm.
Crucible in Mexico flourish. So let's talk a little bit about the challenges that maybe go with moving cross culturally. Taking
Yeah.
what has been working for a weekend experience in the United States and saying, okay, we're
Mm-hmm.
going to plug and play in a different country and see how it
Right.
goes.
Right.
Did you run into any challenges with that?
Yeah. So when I had my first weekend in 2015, I staffed a weekend for the first time in August of that same year, and that was in Chicago. And so when I staffed that weekend, I was very attentive to see what's going to be different. This is in a different country now, and I was so surprised that wow, everything like is the same. Friday to Sunday, the teaching, the activities, the everything. Like holy cow, men are men everywhere, right? Broken men are broken men everywhere, and we all need to learn about ourselves, learn about just the different things that are offered, right, on an initial weekend. And it's a great place. In no matter the country, and so it made me think, man, I wonder if this is the same everywhere in the world, and that there's a connection to the soul of a man that doesn't necessarily it's not limited to a certain culture or so. Um, yeah, that impacted me, and in a good way to think, okay, yeah, I'm a part of a community in Mexico and a broader community beyond that, and because I grew up in Spain, a lot since early on, I've been dreaming about someday seeing Crucible have weekends and have a presence in Spain, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Anyway, that's a journey I'm on, and I'm excited to think about it. Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, so everything has been the same. The teachings are the same, all of those things. I'm curious if there's any parts of the weekend, without going into specifics, that maybe
yeah,
needed to be nuanced culturally. There's slight differences, maybe. Anything like
yeah.
that?
Yeah, I think that the first thing that comes up to me is we in English, there's just a sense of communicating that there's no BS allowed, and so basically, just you don't have to pretend. Just come as you are and show up, and it's fine. But translating that to Spanish was tricky. So it's almost on the other side. In the Spanish sense of that, it would sound like all your garbage is not welcome. So don't talk to us
Mm,
about things that are unpleasant or uncomfortable. And that's not what we want to communicate, because that's what's welcome. We want people to be transparent and vulnerable. So yeah, so we just have modified things like that. We don't say no BS, because you know what, you're welcome to bring what you need to bring.
yeah.
So that's a small thing, but really it's so limited. The example that's just a one out of everything else just lines up so much.
I think so. We were chatting a little bit before we hit record, and I think you said one of the other main differences you've noticed is maybe just the food. I think you might eat some better
Oh
food.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Probably a little
So
more
I
flavor.
mean, everybody likes Mexican food, and most people like Mexican food. So yeah, the food we eat on a Mexican weekend is different. But even uh, last month we started. We had our first initial weekend in northern Mexico, and we're so excited about that, because that's just it's like a multiplying growth path, for the Mexican community. But yeah, up north, there's a lot more steaks, and it's just different. Cuisine is a little bit different. So we
Hmm.
noticed, those of us who came up from the south, we noticed the contrast even within country. So, but yeah, I've staffed weekends in the U.S., and there's good food everywhere, really,
Yeah.
in my opinion. I love
It's ve-
eating.
Well, and being in Chicago, we can talk later about some deep dish pizza and hot dogs. So,
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
so tell me a little bit more about geographically what's happening in Mexico, because so you said
Okay.
that you live near a couple hours from Mexico City. And
Right.
there's been a retreat that happens in Mexico City, and is maybe I'm incorrect here, but that's been kind of the main Crucible Mexico community is that one. And then there's this newer community that just started in northern Mexico. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So the event is not in Mexico City. It's 2 hours away from Mexico City. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's a small town away. There's a Christian camp there that we use. It's fairly small and compared to camps I've been to in the States, probably a little bit more rustic. But it's a good setting for the weekend. Um, so that's where we've been. Yeah, the just for to get an idea of the distance, I had to drive 11 hours to get to the northern place. So it's far. And but there's it's near Monterrey and Saltillo. Those are the two big cities close to that. And the community that's growing there, and more than just the community, there's one man, Pedro, who went to his initial weekend in 2019, and he said, we got to take this up north. And so for the last 4 years, he's been really encouraging that to happen and promoting that. And so it's great to have someone there on the ground who's kind of leading that community up north.
Yeah, that's really cool. So he came down, it sounds like, for his initial, or did he go to Texas, or
No.
what?
He came down
He came
for his
down?
initial in Spanish. He
Yeah.
doesn't speak English so well, so he did it in Spanish. And
Okay.
then he invited friends, and he's staffed himself down here a few times. One of the ones who came that he first invited has staffed in Houston. So I'll just mention in Houston we have a Spanish speaking community, and I know others have been interviewed about that in the past, and on the podcast too. And Mike Espinosa is one who's promoted that quite a bit, and yeah, so a lot of us. One of the things that's been neat is just to see a lot of Mexican participation in those weekends. Those started maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and there's been involvement from folks here in Mexico to get that running and to continue our leadership growth. So not Pedro, but another man has already staffed 2 weekends in Houston, and so yeah, they're excited and growing and.
Wow. So how has Crucible grown in Mexico? Because it started, with this group of men,
Yeah,
and not only has it grown and taken over two locations now, but there's
right.
also the Crucible women getting started in Mexico. So
Right.
what's been kind of the secret behind that growth?
It's a testimony to what good Crucible can offer. I think the first weekend, I believe it was 11 men, so it was small. Second one, the one I attended, was 18, so it was bigger. And then finally, we had. I think we've been close to 25 after that.
Wow.
So we've had full weekends, and then just this past April, we had our first weekend where we could have up to 35 men. Only 30 were on that weekend, but that's the biggest we've had. It's interesting because we've never had so many men sign up to where there's this long waiting list and no one's ever gonna make it. We have had some waiting lists, but I think that there's a this might be cultural too. I don't know if this happens in the States, but if men know that they're going to be put on a waiting list, they'll be like, I won't sign up. I won't even do that. Even if it's something that they want, that they really
Mhm.
see that it's good for them, but they just don't want that to be in that limbo space maybe. So they'll just wait for next year or for 6 months down the road or something like that. But we do fill up the weekends. I mean, there is typically just that desire, and I think because I mean, Mexico has 130 million people. I mean, and our community is the whole country, and because and it from the first 2 or 3 weekends, men started coming from other parts of the country. It wasn't all concentrated in one place, or men coming from just one church. It's been a broader thing, and so as men have experienced the weekend, they've kind of keep sharing with others, and so there's the pool of people who are interested in wanting to keep coming is still not fully tapped. We just passed, so we're at about 300, just over 340 men who have been initiated in Mexico on the weekends. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, it's, and if we do two a year, we've been doing two a year where we are, but if we do that up north as well, we'll have more capacity for that for the next coming years too. And then you
Yeah.
mentioned the women, so that hasn't happened yet. It's starting. So Lena, my wife, has been very involved with that. She was she did her initial weekend in 2016 with the sister organization, and she has staffed a few times. I think with Crucible, maybe four now, but is really growing and really excited about it. And so we've I think it was in the spring where we set aside late January of 2024 as our initial weekend date. And actually, just yesterday we sent out just an invitation, a flyer, just saying, "Hey, this is how registration is going to happen." We're expecting this to be super full and probably long waiting list because 300 men. You can imagine how many women are on the other side of that saying, "What about me?" And so
Right.
there's a big pool there, and then just but yeah, registration is going to open November 1st, 6 a.m. So it's like we expect it to just fill up really, really fast. It's kind of a good problem to have, but it's anyway. Some people will just have to wait till the second one. But yeah, there's excitement for sure.
I've been keeping an eye on flights to go potentially staff. I told Lena I don't speak Spanish, and she said, "You don't have to. We have plenty of
That's right.
places. You can help us make food. You can help us, do some of the background stuff." So
Yep.
if
Yep.
if we have someone who's been through Crucible listening to this, a female who says, "Well, I could go staff in Mexico, I just don't know Spanish," talk to Lena. You
Yep.
don't need to know Spanish,
Yeah.
but if you do, that would be even better. We'd love to have you. So
Yep. Yeah. One of the things that I was first surprised about a Crucible weekend is that there's a 1-to-1 ratio of staff and participants, or sometimes even more staff. I really believe. I've come to realize the importance and the value of that. Just for because there's so much involved in the logistics of making a weekend happen. Because I know right now there's only, I think there's only 5 women in Mexico who are going to staff. So everybody else is coming from outside, and you're right. Not knowing Spanish is not an impediment. Knowing Spanish, obviously, if you do, what a wonderful place. You can have more involvement. You can interact more and all that. So in a sense, I so appreciate those who don't know Spanish but are willing to jump in like that, because I know in my case I know 2 languages, so I feel like I'm more aware of stuff in most places. But I've been to countries where I don't know what's being said, and I know that feeling of holy cow, I wish I just could do more. I don't know
mm,
what's happening. I don't know what's being said or what I should say. The attitude of service and being able to just help wherever non-language roles can be, that would be that's something I applaud.
yeah. And there's something beautiful about, you don't always have to know exactly what's happening, but you can see, right? You can see what's
Right.
happening. You can see how God is working and moving in a room. And
Right.
sometimes it's almost more moving to have the part of, do I understand it or not, taken out. And all you get to do is just watch the beauty of it all
Mm-hmm.
unfold before you. And
Yep.
so that would be a cool opportunity. So, well, Matthew, before we wrap up, do you have other thoughts you want to share?
Just I just thought of my desire to have Crucible in Spain. I've talked to people, a number of people there, and one pastor said to me, "Well, you know what? I talked with my church leadership, and we've decided we want to pay for your flight so you can bring Crucible weekend to us." And I thought, "Oh, that's nice, but it's not just paying for my flight for me to go and do a Crucible weekend for you. I can't do that. It's designed so, like I was saying, to have a lot of involvement. It's just there's so many layers, but I just thought that was a. It's not your typical someone goes, someone shares something, and that's it. There's just a lot more involved.
Yeah, we can't do it alone. So, when you have a weekend in Mexico, do you find that it's mostly men attending that are coming from Mexico, or do you have participants coming from other countries as well?
Yeah, for the most part, it is men from Mexico, but we have had men come from different countries like Costa Rica, Ecuador, Colombia, also from Dominican Republic. So yeah, and they keep telling us, when are we going to be able to grow in our places too? So it's neat to see that there's men a little bit broader than just even Mexico.
That's really cool. Well, do you have anything else that you want to add?
I want to add that I've had the privilege of doing a lot of translation work. So protocols and all the things, all the logistics that happen for the weekend, and also for the initial weekend, but also for the 4 second level weekends. I've attended them and also translated those. Apart from the weekends, and that's probably the big core thing we talk about, but there's the soul groups that we have, and meeting after that, and staying connected in the community. Being able to translate that, I feel like I'm learning what's being taught, and then I'm delivering it, but it's a way of shining my gold, having grown up bilingual and being able to. I mean, there's a lot of bilinguals in the world, but I can tell you there's not a lot of bilinguals who are good grammatically, and I feel like that's one of my strong points, that I have good grammar in both languages. So that's something that I find joy doing.
Yeah, well, I can tell you that the work that you have done with that translation, and I know Lena has done some as well for the women's protocols. Man, what a gift that has been for Crucible to have someone who's passionate about it, capable,
Mm-hmm.
competent, and willing to
Yep.
do all of those things. So thank you for the investment that you have made. It's been huge. So we appreciate you. And yeah, like you said, it's the way that you bring your gold, and you're glorifying God through that. So
Yeah.
I bless you for that work, and thank you for that.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so glad to have you. And we look forward to seeing how God continues to move in Mexico through the Crucible Project and outside of the Crucible Project. Lots of good things happening. So bless you, Matthew. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Joy.
For more information about our weekends, please go to thecrucibleproject.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Rate and review wherever you are listening, and subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. Also, don't forget to check out myjourney2.com for your free 2-week trial. That's myjourneyto.com. Thank you for listening.